In the far reaches of the galaxy, on a desolate planet orbiting a dim star, lived a young girl named Ilara. She was small for her age, with silver hair that shimmered like moonlight and eyes as dark as the void of space. Orphaned at a young age, Ilara had learned to survive in the harsh environment of her barren world, scavenging for food in the wastelands and taking shelter in the ruins of a long-abandoned city. Ilara's planet was known as Zalara, a world that once thrived with life and technology, but had long since fallen into decay. The cities were crumbled, and the once great technologies were now no more than relics rusting under the twin suns. Ilara knew little of her own origins, only that she was alone, and that every day was a battle against the elements and the loneliness that clung to her, like a shadow. Her routine was abruptly altered one evening, when she spotted a strange light descending from the sky. Hidden behind a pile of debris, she watched as a small spacecraft landed in a clearing not far from her hideout. The hatch opened, and an old man stepped out. He was tall and thin, with skin like crumpled paper and a head of wispy white hair. His clothes were strange, unlike anything Ilara had ever seen, and he carried a staff that glowed softly in the twilight. Curiosity overcoming her caution, Ilara approached the old man after he had set up a small camp. As she drew nearer, the man turned, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of the small, frail girl standing in the shadows. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice gentle yet tinged with surprise. Ilara hesitated, not used to speaking much. "I'm Ilara," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. The old man smiled, his face creasing with lines of kindness. "I am Albus," he introduced himself. "I've come from far away. But tell me, young one, what are you doing here all alone?" Ilara shrugged, a gesture of resignation. "I live here. There's nowhere else to go." Albus's eyes softened. "No child should have to live like this," he murmured. He rummaged through his pack and pulled out a small, wrapped package. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "Eat. You must be starving." The food was unlike anything Ilara had ever tasted, rich and filling, with flavors that danced on her tongue. As she ate, Albus watched her with an expression of deep thought. "Why are you here on Zalara?" Ilara asked after her hunger had been somewhat sated. "I'm a traveler," Albus explained, "searching for relics of the past to learn what happened to the civilizations that once were. But now I think I've found something much more important." "What's that?" Ilara's voice was full of curiosity. "You," Albus said simply. "Someone who belongs to the stars but is stuck on this forgotten world." Ilara blinked, unsure what to make of his words. "I would like to take you with me," Albus continued. "There are places among the stars where you could learn, grow, and perhaps find a better life than this." The offer was overwhelming, almost too good to be true. Ilara felt a surge of hope, mixed with fear, to leave the only world she'd ever known. "Can I think about it?" she asked timidly. "Of course," Albus agreed, "but we don't have much time. I plan to leave by tomorrow's first light." Ilara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. As the night deepened, the stars twinkled above, whispering of new beginnings and a life beyond the desolation of Zalara. It was a chance, perhaps her only chance, to escape the fate of her forsaken planet. As she lay down to sleep that night, under the watchful gaze of Albus, who promised to guard her until she made her decision, Ilara's heart was torn between the world she knew and the vast unknown of the galaxy that beckoned to her. Ilara spent the night under the vast expanse of Zalara's starlit sky, her mind a whirlwind of possibilities. The old man, Albus, sat nearby, occasionally stoking the fire that kept the chill of the desert night at bay. His presence was a comforting silhouette against the flickering flames, a guardian of sorts in the wild solitude of her world. When dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Ilara made her decision. She approached Albus, who was packing his belongings into the small spacecraft. "I'll go with you," she said, her voice steady but her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. Albus smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Very well, Ilara. The cosmos awaits us." He extended a hand to help her aboard the vessel, which seemed to hum with anticipation, or perhaps it was just her imagination. As the spacecraft ascended, leaving the desolate landscape of Zalara shrinking below them, Ilara pressed her face against the small window, her eyes wide with wonder. The planet, with all its ruins and desolation, looked almost peaceful from above, a stark contrast to the life she had known. Their first destination was not far, a space station orbiting a nearby planet. As they approached, the station grew from a speck of light to a massive structure floating in the void. "This is the Ether Hub," Albus explained. "A crossroads for travelers, traders, and scholars. You'll find beings from many different worlds here." The interior of the Ether Hub was bustling with activity. Aliens of various shapes and sizes moved through the corridors, their languages a cacophony of strange sounds, and their appearances even more varied. Ilara clung to Albus's side, her eyes taking in everything with a mixture of awe and apprehension. They made their way to a quieter section of the station, where Albus led her to a small library filled with data slates and ancient books. "Your education begins here," he said, handing her a slate. "Learn about the galaxy, its history, and its cultures. Knowledge will be your guide and your shield." Ilara spent days immersed in learning. She discovered the histories of 1,000 worlds, the rise and fall of empires, and the science of stars and space travel. Her mind, once occupied with survival, now brimmed with knowledge and questions about the universe. During her time on the Ether Hub, Ilara also learned to communicate with other beings. Albus introduced her to a kind-hearted Rillian named Mira, whose skin shimmered like starlight. Mira taught her the common galactic language, easing her integration into the wider universe. As weeks turned into months, Ilara transformed. The timid, starved orphan from Zalara became a confident, knowledgeable young woman, eager to explore and learn. Albus, seeing the change in her, knew it was time for the next phase of their journey. "We need to visit the Council of Sages on Aldebaran," Albus told her one evening. "It's time for you to learn more about your potential and your role in this galaxy." The journey to Aldebaran was long, and as they traveled, Ilara reflected on her transformation. The universe was vast, and she was but a small part of it, yet she felt a connection to the cosmos that she had never known before. Aldebaran was a planet of wisdom and ancient power. The Council of Sages was a group of the most learned beings in the galaxy, dedicated to maintaining knowledge and order. Meeting them was a privilege, and as they entered the great hall, Ilara felt the weight of their gaze. The sages listened intently as Albus explained Ilara's origins and her rapid adaptation to galactic life. After a long deliberation, they spoke. "Ilara, you are not just any orphan," the head sage declared. "You are a descendant of the Starborn, ancient beings who once bridged the galaxies. Your potential is immense, and with the right guidance, you could help shape the future." The revelation stunned Ilara, but a part of her felt as if a missing piece had clicked into place. She was Starborn, part of a legacy that stretched back through the ages, connected to the cosmos in a way she was only beginning to understand. With the sage's blessing, Ilara and Albus left Aldebaran, ready to continue their exploration of the galaxy. Ilara and Albus's ship cut through the cosmic seas, heading towards the Lyra system, renowned for its dense asteroid belts and mysterious unexplored moons. This leg of their voyage was driven by a whisper of ancient technology rumored to be hidden in the depths of Lyra's shadows, technology that could perhaps unlock further secrets of Ilara's starborn heritage. Upon arriving, they maneuvered through a field of asteroids, their ship occasionally shuddering as small fragments glanced off the hull. Ilara had become adept at assisting with the navigation, her instincts honed by the countless hours spent learning the intricacies of space travel under Albus's tutelage. They landed on one of Lyra's lesser moons, a place where no light from the system's 2 suns reached. The landscape was bathed in perpetual twilight, illuminated only by their ship's lights. The surface was rugged, covered in dust and rocky debris that crunched underfoot as they disembarked. "I've detected an energy signature deep within that crater." Albus pointed to a vast depression in the surface a few kilometers away. "Our answers may lie there." Equipped with their exploration gear, they ventured towards the crater. The gravity was low, allowing them to cover ground quickly despite the uneven terrain. Ilara's heart raced with excitement and a touch of anxiety as they approached the source of the signal. At the crater's edge, they looked down into an abyss that seemed to swallow all light. "The readings are strongest at the center," Albus noted, checking his instruments. They descended into the crater. As they reached its heart, the ground beneath them shifted unexpectedly, revealing an ancient structure, half buried and forgotten. The architecture was unlike anything Ilara had seen before, with smooth flowing lines and surfaces that seemed to absorb light. "This is it," Albus whispered, his voice filled with awe. "A relic of the Starburn." They explored the structure, finding their way through corridors lined with strange glyphs. Ilara ran her fingers over the symbols, feeling a hum of energy pulse under her touch. "Can you understand these?" Alrus asked, watching her closely. "Somehow I do," she murmured. "They speak of a gateway, a bridge between distant worlds." Further inside, they found a chamber at the core of the structure. In its center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a crystalline device, pulsing with a soft blue light. As Ilara approached, the device activated, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. "This must be what we were looking for," Albus said. "A map of the Starborn network." Ilara reached out and touched the map. The points on the hologram connected, tracing lines between worlds, some marked with symbols that matched those on her amulet, a family heirloom she had always worn but never understood. "These are not just locations," she realized. "They're nodes, part of a larger network, maybe even portals." Albus nodded, his eyes reflecting the map's light. "We need to explore these nodes, Ilara. They could be key to unlocking your abilities and understanding the full scope of your heritage." The discovery fueled them with new purpose. They studied the map extensively, noting the coordinates and symbols, making plans to visit each node. The moon of Lyra had offered them a piece of a larger puzzle, and they were determined to piece it together. As they left the structure, Ilara looked back at the ancient edifice, feeling a deep connection to the history it represented. Her destiny was no longer a path walked alone, but a voyage shared with the cosmos, and she was ready to follow it wherever it might lead. The coordinates from the Lyra relic guided Ilara and Albus to a remote sector of the galaxy, where a drifting space anomaly had been reported by passing traders. Known as the Veil of Tyrannis, it was a nebula pulsating with energy storms and radiant gases, hiding whatever secrets it held in swirls of iridescent color. Navigating the veil required precision and patience. The ship's instruments flickered erratically as they penetrated the outer layers of the nebula, the celestial gases painting ghostly arcs across the hull. Ilara, her senses attuned to the ship and its surroundings, felt every tremor and heard every groan of the structure as they delved deeper. "We're close," Albus announced, eyes locked on the readings that danced before him. "There's an artificial structure within the nebula, something immense." The nebula parted momentarily, revealing a colossal gateway, its architecture bearing the unmistakable hallmarks of starborn design. It was an archway of monumental scale, adorned with the same cryptic glyphs that they had seen on the moon's structure. As their ship approached, the gateway pulsed with life, recognizing the presence of its kin in Ilara. "This must be one of the nodes," Ilara breathed, her pulse quickening. "A portal, perhaps?" Albus maneuvered the ship closer, allowing them to observe the gateway in greater detail. "It's dormant but intact. If we can activate it, we might be able to use it to reach the other nodes directly." With the ship anchored near the gateway, they donned their suits and ventured out into the nebula. The energy in the nebular gases tingled against Ilara's skin, a whisper of raw cosmic power. Reaching the control console embedded at the base of the arch, Ilara placed her hands on the smooth surface, and the glyphs illuminated, responding to her touch. The gateway vibrated, channels of light tracing across its breadth, converging above them to form a shimmering portal. The air hummed with energy, and a wind seemed to blow from within the portal itself, carrying with it the scent of distant worlds. "Ilara, you did it!" Albus exclaimed, his voice a mix of wonder and pride. She looked at him, her eyes shining. "It's connected to the other nodes. We can go anywhere from here. Choosing a destination was their next challenge. The map indicated several nodes, each potentially leading to new discoveries about the Starborn and Alarce's heritage. After careful consideration, they selected a planet known as Cygnus X, a world rumored to hold vast libraries of ancient knowledge. Stepping through the portal felt like diving into a stream of pure energy. For a moment, there was nothing but blinding light and the sensation of moving at unimaginable speed. Then, suddenly, they emerged on the other side. They stood on Cygnus X, a world bathed in the light of a dying star. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of ozone and something sweet and unknown. Before them lay a city of spires and arches, all constructed in the elegant flowing style of the Starborn. "This is incredible," Ilara whispered, taking in the sight of the sprawling metropolis. "It's as if no one ever left." As they explored the city, they found it deserted but perfectly preserved. Libraries filled with scrolls and data slates stretched on endlessly, archives of knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. Ilara felt a profound connection to this place, as if the very stones sang with the voices of her ancestors. Days passed as they delved into the texts and artifacts, piecemealing the history of Ilara's people. She learned of their achievements, their travels across the galaxies, and their eventual fade into legend. The knowledge was vast, but every discovery fueled her determination to learn more and to find her place in the legacy of the Starborn. In one of the libraries, hidden among ancient tomes, they found a series of star charts and a device similar to the one from Lyra, but more complex. This device, they learned, could not only map the network of nodes, but also control them, potentially As Ilara and Albus left the ancient libraries of Cygnus X, the information they had gleaned weighed heavily on their minds. The pathways were now open, and the destinations they revealed held the potential to reshape their understanding of the universe and Ilara's place within it. The next node led them to a world enveloped in a perpetual storm, known only as the Tempestus Orbis in the ancient Starborn charts. As their ship approached, the dark clouds swirling around the planet seemed to pulsate with a fierce energy, lightning arcing through the atmosphere in bright, violent flashes. "We need to be careful," Albus warned, his hands steady on the controls as they descended into the storm. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever's down there, it's powerful." The landing was rough, the ship bucking and shaking as they pierced the storm's outer layer. When they finally touched down, the world outside was a blur of gray and white, the wind howling like a living thing. Despite the turmoil, Ilara felt a strange pull, an urge to explore this chaotic landscape. They suited up and ventured into the storm, the wind threatening to sweep them off their feet. Using ropes tied to the ship for safety, they made their way to a nearby ridge, where the signal from the node was strongest. At the ridge's peak, amidst the storm's fury, they found a monolith, a single massive stone covered in the familiar Starborn glyphs. The monolith stood defiant against the storm, unaffected by its violence. Ilara approached, her hand reaching out to touch the cold stone. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, the glyphs glowed a bright blue, and the storm around them calmed, as if pacified by her presence. "This is a weather control node," Ilara realized aloud. "They could manipulate the environment with this." "More than that," Albus added, studying the monolith's inscriptions. "This was a part of a network. These nodes could control ecological balances across planets. Imagine the possibilities if such power could be harnessed responsibly." They spent several hours at the monolith, documenting its structure and function, learning how to activate and control the node. As Ilara mastered the controls, the storm's intensity ebbed and flowed at her command, responding to her touch and will. The realization of such power was exhilarating and daunting. With the storm subdued, they explored further, finding remnants of a civilization that had thrived under the shelter of the node's power. Ruined buildings and forgotten streets told stories of a people who lived at the mercy of their planet's wild nature. Their survival hinged on the functioning of the monolith. Their time on Tempestus Orbis revealed much about the Starborn's role as caretakers of their worlds, their technology designed not to dominate but to harmonize, Alara felt a deep sense of connection to these principles, her heritage imbued with a responsibility to protect and nurture. As they left the planet, the storm resumed its wild dance, the monolith once again dormant behind them. They had restored part of the node's function but left its power unchecked, a decision Alila felt was best until its implications could be fully understood. Their next destination was even more enigmatic, indicated on the starborn maps only by a set of coordinates and a single word: Genesis. Whatever awaited them there, Alara knew it held the keys to the deepest secrets of her ancestors. As the ship sailed away from the storm-wrapped world, Alara stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the stars. The threads of her destiny were weaving a complex tapestry, each node a knot tied to the next, each discovery a thread pulled tighter, drawing her closer to understanding the full scope of her potential and the legacy she was born into. The journey to the Genesis node was marked by a palpable sense of anticipation. This final coordinate promised to hold the keys to the origins of the Starborn, and potentially the origins of the universe itself, as understood by Alara's ancestors. The coordinates led them deep into an uncharted quadrant where the fabric of space seemed to shimmer with the echoes of ancient energies. Upon arrival, Alara and Albus found themselves facing a celestial formation unlike any they had encountered before. A massive, swirling vortex of stellar dust and cosmic energy lay before them, pulsating with a rhythmic glow that suggested not chaos, but an ordered, intelligent design. "The heart of the Starborn legacy," Albus whispered, his voice filled with reverence as he guided their ship closer to the vortex. As they approached, the ship's instruments began to falter under the overwhelming presence of raw cosmic power. However, Alara felt a strange harmony with the energies, as if her very being resonated with the pulse of the vortex. "I can feel it," Alara said, her eyes locked on the mesmerizing dance of light and shadow. "It's calling to me." With cautious maneuvers, they positioned the ship at what appeared to be the nexus of the vortex. Here, the energy was most concentrated, almost solid in its intensity. A platform of sorts, constructed from the same enigmatic material as the other Starborn nodes, floated at the center of the vortex. Alara and Albus donned their protective suits and tethered themselves to the ship with energy lines before stepping into the void. Drawn by an inexplicable force, Alara moved towards the platform, her body instinctively navigating the complex currents of energy that surrounded it. Standing at the center of the platform, Alara reached out her hands. The moment her fingers touched the surface, a surge of light burst forth, enveloping her in a cocoon of radiant energy. Visions flashed before her eyes, snapshots of galaxies being born, of the Starborn shaping worlds, of networks connecting life across the vast expanse of space. "These are the memories of the universe," Alara realized, her voice echoing in her own mind. "The legacy of those who came before me." Albus watched in awe as the light around Alara grew brighter, her figure blurred by the intensity of the power she was channeling. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light receded, leaving Alara standing unharmed, her eyes glowing with newfound understanding and strength. "We have unlocked the Genesis node," she declared, her voice steady and filled with a new, profound authority. "It's not just a record of the past, it's a guide for the future. It shows us how to restore balance, how to use our knowledge and power to sustain and nurture life across the galaxies." The platform began to fade, its mission completed, and the vortex slowly dissipated, revealing a previously hidden star system with planets teeming with potential for life. "This is our task, Albus," Alara continued, her gaze fixed on the new worlds before them. "We must spread this knowledge, use it to help others as my ancestors once did. We will start with these worlds." Albus nodded, his eyes filled with pride and wonder. "And I will be by your side, Alara, as we create a new chapter for the universe." As they returned to their ship, the path forward clear, Alara felt a profound connection to the cosmos that went beyond her Starborn heritage. She was a custodian of the universe's oldest secrets and its newest hopes. Together, Alara and Albus set course for the nearest planet, ready to begin the work of awakening and guiding new worlds. The legacy of the Starborn, once shrouded in mystery, was now a beacon of hope and renewal, carried forth by one who had been lost.